Hello, good people, and welcome to Hillbilly Cat History, Spiritual Studies, Book of John, and the Impersonal Life, and we're on Chapter 3 of the Impersonal Life. And that's what we're going to get to as soon as we come back from this song, which is called Cross on the Circle. And it's about a cross that Elvis saw that told him something special.
He saw the cross at dawn and said, "It's a good omen, and a dream again." At the break of dawn, through the window pane, he saw a cross in morning rain, white as grace, tall as prayer, calling him to build and share. Not a kingdom, not a throne, but a place of love alone, where laughter rides on horse's breath and peace outshines the fear of death. Come home to the circle and the sign, where the lake reflects the holy line. No one needs money, no one needs fame, just a handshake and a name. Come home where the cross stands tall. Come and share the love of all. Mobile homes and barbecue nights, trucks and trials and porch light rides, the hand-picked heart to share the dream, a mythic village by the stream. This is more than land, it's grace, refuge carved in sacred space, a gift of love to friends and kin, protected from the world's loud din. Come home to the circle and the sign, where the lake reflects the holy line. No one needs money, no one needs fame, just a handshake and a name. Come home, come home, where the cross stands long. Come and share the love of all. Oh, come and share the love of all.
Thank you all for gathering here at Hillbilly Cat History, where we remember together and listen for the echoes. Hi, Gunn. Hi, Michelle. Thank you so much for coming. I appreciate seeing you both here. Michelle, I don't remember seeing you at the program before, so welcome to the show. Are you a fan of Elvis Presley? Because if so, I've got something very special to show you today. Something that Elvis received from some of his friends. A very special gift. And it is this white leather-covered Bible And you can see it's a bit stained, it's a little dirty. Obviously, someone held this in their hands. They used it. They read it. And Michelle says that yes, she is a fan of Elvis Presley. Are you a fan of the music or the movies? Did you come from the recent movie? Are you a new fan? Have you been a fan for a long time? Let us know, Michelle. Most people that watch this program, they've been a fan for a long time, but I would love to see some newer fans in here. We do have a few that have only known Elvis for 2 or 3 years, but they want to know more and more once they get to know about him. And this Bible that we can see, and we can see signs that someone read it, and I'm going to guess it was Elvis, that someone loved this Bible. And you can see on the front, it says Elvis A. Presley. It's got his name on it. This Bible was given to him by the Memphis Mafia. All of them. It was a group gift. And it was on Christmas 1964. So, a lot of people have been following the Circle G series, and that takes place in 1967. That's the year that Elvis gets married. So this is 3 years before that, at Christmas. The interior cover of this Bible has a special illustration. It's the Tree of Life. It's a design that was created by Marty Lacker, who was Elvis's friend. He knew him in high school, but they didn't really become friends until about 1957. And then when Elvis came back from the army, he hired Marty to travel with him back and forth to California to make the movies. And Marty took care of things like accounting. And he was good with numbers and paperwork. But he also had a flair for creativity. For instance, he designed or co-designed the tuxedo that Elvis wore in his wedding that we've recently seen a lot of pictures of. And 3 years before that, he designed the Tree of Life, and it has a tree, and each branch has the name of a member of the Memphis Mafia, who were the guys that hung out with Elvis. Each one of them donated funds for the purchase and the artwork. And Marty said, it was an idea I had one night at Christmas, 1964, while sitting up one night at Graceland, where my family and I lived for a while. So when Marty says that he lived at Graceland for a while, he lived in an apartment that had been converted from the garage that was at Graceland when Elvis first moved in. Elvis goes through a long series of renovations at Graceland. And he starts enclosing different pieces and making a larger house. And one of them is this completely self-contained apartment. And we don't really see pictures of that or anything, but it's in Graceland. Vernon lived in that apartment after Elvis passed away. It became too much on Vernon to come from Dolan, which was the road next to Graceland. Vernon owned the house over on Dolan. You can still see it there today. At that time, there was a gate in the fence, and he could open the gate and he could drive his golf cart over to Graceland and over to the office that's behind Graceland that he took care of, where he took care of all the business, but it just became too much for him at the end, and he just moved into this apartment. But in 1964, Marty lived there with his 2 daughters and his wife. And Marty says, I designed it and I drew it up. Then for Christmas, I got the guys to chip in for the beautiful big white Bible. We had the tree inscribed in gold inside the cover. And we gave it to Elvis for Christmas from all the guys. It had Elvis Presley engraved along the trunk and our names. Billy Smith, Alan Fortas, Joe Esposito, Richard Davis, Mike Keaton. That's a name a lot of Elvis fans have probably never heard. But he was one of the Memphis Mafia, Mike Keaton. Red West and Marty Lacker, which formed the limbs. It was inscribed at the top like a tree, planted by the water that bringeth forth fruit in his season. Then a few weeks later, for his birthday, I had Harry Levitch, our jeweler, make a medallion necklace with the tree engraved, and we gave that to him for his birthday on January 8th, 1965, and he wore it for many years. So the Bible is linked to a pendant that they have made for Elvis as well for his birthday, which is right after Christmas. Now here we can see the pendant itself. And it says, on one side, on the other side is the tree of life. On this side, I believe it says the same thing 3 times. Once in English, once in Hebrew, once in Latin. And it says, and ye shall know the truth, and the truth shall make you free. Ye shall know the truth, and the truth shall make you free. Jerry Schilling said this was one of Elvis's favorite sayings, one of his favorite quotes. And on this side, we can see the front, the tree of life. Now, there's something strange here, and I'm not going to point it out right this second, but we're going to move forward for a minute. And Gunn says, Red but not Sonny and Hebler were involved in the gift of the Holy Bible. So it does seem strange that Sonny's name was not mentioned by Marty. And I don't have an explanation for that right at this second, but I think that this might have been one of those periods where Sonny had split from Elvis. They had a falling out at one point. And I think it was around this time. That would be interesting to go look back up. I think that might be why Sonny's not on this. It's either that or he didn't chip in, but I feel like if he was around, he would have chipped in. Now, Hebler, he's not in the picture yet. This is 1964 going into 1965. Hebler doesn't appear in the picture until, I think it's 70 or 71. So he's not part of the deal yet. On this page, we can see the actual page from the Bible. This is what Marty's talking about that he designed, and he had inscribed in gold. So this is gold ink that we're looking at. And you can see at the top it has the same saying that we just looked at, and ye shall know the truth, and the truth shall make you free. And you can see Elvis's name runs down the trunk. And it's hard to make out what it says between the branches at the top, but I think Marty just told us, so let me look here. He says at the top, yeah, here it is. It says, like a tree planted by the water that bringeth forth fruit in his season. And then the first name is Billy Smith. And then you've got Alan Fortis. So Billy is Elvis's cousin. And he's at the wedding. And if you've been listening to the wedding stories, he didn't make it into some of the pictures because apparently he changed into jeans for some reason. And Michelle says that she had lost connection for a second. Well, welcome back. I do find that there are a lot of technical issues that come up here on YouTube. And there are forces that don't want us to get out all this truth about Elvis. But we're going to power through. We're going to get it out there. So Billy Smith is Elvis's cousin. Alan Fortis, that's Elvis's friend who at one point used to buy a lot of clothes for him. He also used to do all the logistics for the vehicles, like making sure that they were full of gas and had been maintained recently, that they were getting their oil changed on time, that they were clean, stuff like that. There was a nearby car wash where you could take it over and they would wash it. And it also had a gas station. And you can see that story on the channel about Elvis's mechanic. But we could also see, well, Alan Fortis, he also ends up as the foreman of the Circle G Ranch for the people following the Circle G story. Richard Davis, he is a stand-in the movies for Elvis a lot. And he also is a valet for Elvis, meaning he takes care of the clothes that Elvis is about to wear. He makes sure that the wardrobe, both his casual and his formal wardrobe, gets shipped to wherever he's at, that there are clothes in all of his houses, that they fit Elvis, and that they're in good repair. The next name is Mike Keaton. And again, that's a little known name. And we're not going to go into him during this particular video. But he was a member of the Memphis Mafia. We got Red West. We can see Larry Geller's name. There's Jerry Schilling. So Red has been with Elvis since he knew him in high school, but he began driving the car for Elvis to take him to his different concerts in 1955. Let's go to Jerry Schilling. He's known Elvis since 1954, right after Elvis cut his first record, but nobody knew his face. Jerry met Elvis out on the football field. Well, it was a big field, and they were playing touch football, which was basically tackle football, is the way that they would play touch football back in those days, at least the way Elvis played it. And Jerry Schilling, he's a little bit younger than Elvis and the other guys by 4 or 5 years. So he was a teenager, but he was on the young side of the teenagers. They needed a guy to play, and Red West said, "Hey, Jerry, you want to play?" They knew Jerry because he hung out there at the park all the time, and I think Red knew a sibling of Jerry's. So they started playing, and Elvis always remembered Jerry, and when he came back from the army and he'd been doing the movies for a couple, 3 years, he reached out to Jerry, who was in college, and he offered him a job doing what most of the other guys did. It's to accompany him around and be there while he's doing the movies and the other cutting the soundtracks and all the other business that he's got to do. And so he brings Jerry into the fold. So that was fairly recently for Jerry. I'm not positive, but I believe this is Jerry's first Christmas at Graceland from the way he describes this gift. Marty Lacker, we've already talked about, and Larry Geller. Larry Geller is a brand new friend. He's only been around about 7 months. He was a hairdresser. What would have been called a barber up until Larry Geller came around, and the guy that he worked for, Jay Sebring, they became hairstylists for men. There were no hairstylists for men back then. They were the first. Jay Sebring thought up this idea, and Larry Geller started working for him, and they were making a lot of money and cutting famous people's hair like Paul Newman and other famous celebrities. And Elvis was getting his hair cut by Jay Sebring, but Jay would often come to Elvis. Well, I think he always came to Elvis and cut his hair. And he couldn't make it once, and they substituted Larry. That was in 1964. And so the book that we've been looking at, The Impersonal Life, Larry gave that book to Elvis in 1964. So this is Christmas of the same year. Well, when Elvis received this gift, Larry's name was not on the tree. I don't believe Larry gave any money for this Bible because he wasn't asked to give money for this Bible. The guys did not like Larry, and they didn't like Larry from the very first moment, as we can see reflected in this gift. Hi, Colleen. Thank you so much for coming. Appreciate seeing you here. So this gift represents, it appears to be a unity among the group, but it's actually showing us a schism in the group, a break, a fissure, the beginning of something that's gonna become larger, because in the 1967 series, where we're following Circle G and they're at Clam Bake, suddenly Larry is no longer wanted. The colonel puts an edict down that there isn't going to be any more spiritual studies. Elvis stops talking to Larry, doesn't allow him to be alone doesn't allow himself to be alone with Larry. There's always someone around when Larry is doing his hairstyling with Elvis. They're not talking about the spiritual stuff anymore. And the day before Elvis gets married, Larry quits. And he quits by not coming back. Jerry Schilling calls and says, Larry, you got to get over here. We're about to go to Las Vegas. And Larry says, no, I'm not coming. But just 3 years before, at Christmas, here's his name written in gold with all the other guys on this tree. And Elvis, when he opened this gift, he was ecstatic. He loved this symbol. He loved the idea that the guys gave him a Bible. Of course he loved a Bible, but he had a lot of Bibles. It's really this page that made everything so special. And then he noticed that Larry's name wasn't on it. And everybody knew that Elvis was spending a lot of time with Larry, and that Elvis loved Larry, and they had this special thing going about the spiritual talks. And that Elvis felt Larry's presence was necessary for their shared exploration of spiritual issues. Nobody else is talking about this with Elvis. The other guys listed on this page, they didn't want to talk about this with Elvis. He tried to interest them in it. They had no interest in it. They couldn't even really fake it for Elvis. But Larry, this was his life's passion. So Elvis was having great conversations with him. Colleen says that she wonders if Larry knew it was Elvis's wedding. No, he didn't. Jerry tried to hint it to him, but Larry wasn't listening. And Larry makes that clear in his book, because the next day he finds out Elvis got married. And Gunn says she thinks it was good that Elvis was taking a pause from reading Larry's stuff. Maybe so. And at that moment, I think he needed to focus on a marriage. And Gunn's asking if Larry was not there. No, Larry quit the day before the marriage. So he did not go to the wedding. He was not aware of it until he saw it reported in a newspaper. But he chose not to go. He chose to leave and never come back. He was quitting Elvis. He wasn't going to accept a paycheck anymore. But that's 3 years in the future from, not quite 3 years, but in the future from this document that we're looking at. But when Elvis received this and he looked at it, he saw that Larry's name wasn't there. He got mad. He became upset. And he refused to accept the Bible. He handed it back to him. And he said, until you add Larry's name to the tree, I cannot accept this. Now, I don't know exactly what words he used, but he wouldn't take possession of it. And so they had Larry's name added, and then he accepted this lovely gift. Now, if we go back one picture to look at this tree of life, and again, it'll be hard for you to see, I'm sure, especially if you're watching on a phone or a small screen. But Larry's name is also it's engraved in this piece. And this was given to Elvis for his birthday on January 8th. So, 2 weeks later, basically from Christmas. Not a real long time. So they must have had Larry's name added to this before they gave him this gift, because there's not the same kind of story about this particular tree of life. I think they learned the lesson by that point, and they put it on here. But they've added his name here, and then they give the Bible back to Elvis, and he accepts it. And Gunn said that she thought that maybe Larry was the other one staying in his rooms at the wedding. No, unfortunately, Larry chose not to come. Chose to leave, and he won't be back for a few years. He's decided that he needs to move on. And maybe he needed to move on. Elvis didn't always throw people out of the group. He didn't always break up with his girlfriends. There just came a time where they moved on. In Larry's case, this was that moment. And Gunn asked, Red was one of the people that stayed in their rooms, but do we know who the other one was? No, I don't. And it's a very interesting question, right? Which one of them went, but didn't go to the wedding or to the reception? From the pictures we've looked at, it seems like everybody went to the reception. The only one I don't see there is Lamar, but we've been told that Lamar's not there. I don't see Alan Fortis, but we were told Alan wasn't there. So I don't know. Now, well, probably not after he received this gift, but as a Christmas gift, Elvis gave to each of the Memphis Mafia this same year a wristwatch designed by Harry Levitch. Now, we know Harry Levitch because we've seen him in pictures at the wedding. He made, I believe, both Priscilla's and Elvis's wedding ring. He put them in a suitcase with a whole bunch of other jewelry, like a special briefcase, and he flew with them on a plane with Vernon, Elvis's father, and Vernon's wife, Dee. And they all came together to Palm Springs, and then they went to Las Vegas for the wedding. And I'm not sure what happened to Harry after that, but he ends up back in Memphis, and it appears maybe on May 2nd, because he's writing receipts for stuff that's sold at the wedding. So we've seen Harry. But Elvis has gone to him, and he had a special watch made. And Harry, the reason that Elvis uses Harry Levitch is that he was an early supporter of Elvis. Harry also knew Red West from before Elvis was famous, and had helped Red in some manner. Not exactly sure of Harry Levitch's whole story. It's one I'm hoping we can dig into together at some point. And Gunn says that whoever stayed in their room would have shown themselves on the plane home. That's true. And it's possible we could go back and comb through those stories, and maybe we could identify who that was. Maybe we'll try it. But in this story about Harry, he designed, or Elvis designed, or together, they designed, it says designed by Harry, but Elvis is the one purchasing this watch, and Elvis has designed other jewelry that Harry makes, like his wedding ring. This watch has a face mechanism which changes from all black to a cross to the Star of David. So like every 20 seconds, this watch changes a little bit. And here's the watch. I'm here. I'm getting an error from YouTube. Are you guys still able to hear me? I'm going to hold on for a second and not give out any new information until I can see somebody can hear me. Oh, I've got a signal that I'm back. So if I was gone for a second, not sure what happened there. But we can see the watch on screen. And you can see that they've taken this picture so that you can see both the star and the cross. Thank you so much, Gunn and Colleen, for letting me know the audio's still on. I believe this is the watch. This particular model, this exact watch, is Joe Esposito's. It's got the Star of David and the cross. It's the auction listing indicates that it was Swiss made, but I believe what they're saying is the movement of the watch is Swiss made, which is the internals of the watch. And then Harry, he would have bought these internals as a package, as a mechanism, and then he would have put it together into this watch, I believe is what, because we've heard that it was designed by Harry. Or it's possible Harry shot the whole thing out to whoever makes these Swiss watches in Switzerland, and then they made the whole thing and shipped it back to him. So I'm not clear on that, other than that it came through Harry. And that he has something to do, that he's the one that wants it to switch between these symbols every 20 seconds. But that seems like something that Elvis has asked him to do, because it was Elvis's idea to have multiple symbols of multiple religions, like when he wore the necklaces. And Gunn says that I was never gone. Thank you so much, Gunn. And Joe Esposito says, I, Joe Esposito, road manager and friend of Elvis Presley, do hereby attest to the authenticity of this gold medal Star of David polarized wristwatch. This gold medal men's wristwatch with black face incorporating the Star of David design and a crucifix in the center was designed by Elvis Presley and Marty Lacker. It was ordered from Harry Levitch Jewelers and was one of the early gifts from Elvis to his closest friends. Oh, and I'm wrong. This is not Joe's particular watch. They do not know who this watch belonged to, but Joe is testifying that this is one of the watches. So we don't know who owned this watch. But at some point, it was in Joe's hand to authenticate. Hi, Pat. Thank you so much for coming. Appreciate seeing you here. So I thought you guys would be interested to see the Bible and the pendant and the watch that all go with this story. That also links to the impersonal life, because it's all about Larry being in the group. And this watch, I think, also symbolizes Elvis's desire to save all of his friends, that they all go to heaven with him, that he does not want to abandon his Jewish friends. And in this watch, he puts them all together. And I've also got a few words about this from Jerry Schilling. And Jerry says, we, being the Memphis Mafia, presented Elvis with a fancy leather-bound Bible that had a sketch of the Tree of Life on its front page. Elvis's name was on the trunk of the tree, and each of the guys got their own branch. Written below the tree in English, Latin, and Hebrew was one of Elvis's favorite quotations. And ye shall know the truth, and the truth shall set you free. Now it's interesting that Jerry says that it's written below the tree, because we can see that it's written above the tree. And it's not that Jerry's lying. It's that human memory is fallible, and in all of these recollections that we hear, there is fallibility. They don't get all of these details right, because human brains don't remember all of these kind of details right, and that's why it's so wonderful to be able to match up the pictures to the stories. And Gunn says that she missed if Larry got a watch too. I'm sure he did, because Elvis bought the watches. So Elvis wasn't going to leave Larry out. And Jerry says, in return, Elvis gave each of us a $1,000 bonus. So for Christmas, each of the guys got a $1,000 bonus. Now, they all chipped in on this present. And they chip in on some other presents over the course of time. And I'm not positive about this, but my feeling from Marty is that it was somewhat difficult to get all the guys to chip in. Because then you had to determine a dollar amount that they would all chip in. But they all got $1,000 bonus. So how much do you think they chipped in to get this Bible? Like, I have no idea how much the Bible cost. My guess is the Bible itself, based on that leather cover that we saw, and just having looked at the prices of Bibles, doing other research, I don't think this could be more than $50, maybe $100. Now, the inscribing with the gold, that might have been $100 itself. Not really sure. I mean, I don't think it could have gone above $100. And Gunn says a watch plus a bonus. That's right. And the watch, I mean, I don't know how much the watch was worth at the time. I'm sure it's $100, right? And let's remember that $1,000 in 1964, and I'm doing this calculation off the top of my head, but it's roughly $10,000 in today's money. It's really a little bit more, but it's roughly $10,000 in today's money. Sounds like a pretty good bonus, right? If you adjust for the inflation, it begins to sound like a very good bonus. But Jerry says Elvis gave each of us $1,000 bonus and a fancy jeweled wristwatch that had been made by Harry Levitch, favorite Memphis jeweler who'd been a very early supporter of Elvis's career. Mr. Levitch was also happy to do special work for Elvis, and these watches had an unusual face that could go black and then reveal either a cross or the Star of David. When I asked Elvis what it meant, he said, "To make you think." Now, what do you think Elvis meant to make you think? What did he want them to think about? On a watch that shows unity between Christians and Judaism. Now, Larry was a Jew, and they didn't ostracize Larry from the group because he was Jewish. But they did create dissonance within their own unity. And Elvis had already ordered and gotten, with Marty, this symbol of unity as their Christmas presents. It must have been disappointing to Elvis in Marty. He must have been disappointed in Marty that Marty would then get that Christmas present of the Tree of Life and not have Larry's name put on it, when they together had designed this symbol of unity. It's not just religious unity. I don't think that's the only message Elvis was trying to get across. I think, Elvis is no fool. He understands there is dissonance within his group. He knows that these men are not accepting Larry. And he's designed a Christmas gift that reflects his current spiritual journeys and unity. And Jerry says a couple of weeks later, the guys presented Elvis with a collective gift for his 30th birthday, a gold Tree of Life pendant, which became one of his most worn pieces of jewelry. I spent most of my Christmas bonus to purchase my first personal gift to Elvis. So Jerry received $1,000 bonus, which was worth roughly $10,000 today. And he says that he spent most of it on something. This must have been something very impressive. Jerry says, an intricately detailed collector's gun with a very unusual carved handle. At the time, it didn't strike me as strange to follow up a Bible and a tree of life with a firearm. Elvis didn't say much about the gun at first. It was always easier for him to be a gift giver than a gift receiver. But I was happy to see that on movie nights at the Memphian, he carried my present around in its leather case. So, if Jerry bought a gun that cost roughly $1,000 at the time, it must have been a very fancy, beautiful gun. I do not have a picture of that and have not tracked it down at this time, but that would be another amazing thing to see. There are lots of pictures of Elvis guns out there, so I'm not even sure how I would identify it, but it'd be interesting to see. And Gunn is saying that maybe what Elvis wants them to think about is if Jesus was the Messiah or not. Or maybe he wanted them to go to heaven with him, and that maybe would change their religion so they could all meet him in heaven. And what do I think? I think that he was trying to heal the rupture in his own group, that he could not get them to accept Larry. But on a larger scale, I think he was thinking in mythical terms about these religions and how people are divided into them and how that means most of his fans. And it's distilled down to his personal friends. They're not going to go to heaven with him. So is this gift a illumination to the path in the same way that the gospel songs are? I don't know, maybe. But I think, I'm not even sure that on Christmas 1964, his thoughts have crystallized enough. Because he's not really going to determine the path until after the Circle G, when the opportunity arises for the 68 special. But I think he's finding something here, and it's reflected within the watch. And Jerry says that in addition to his new watch, he also had an Elvis Presley American Express credit card and an Elvis Presley Shell service station credit card, and that he was authorized to sign for both. So by this point, Jerry has been fully accepted into the group by Christmas 1964, by birthday 1964. Elvis has total trust in him. He's walking around with an American Express card on Elvis's dime. You know, Elvis is going to pay for everything on it. And a service station card for Shell service stations, which is probably where they're stopping when they're driving back and forth to California. Probably hitting all the Shell stations because he's got the credit card for them. And that is kind of an interesting look into Jerry, who I believe also joined in 64. You know, I'm not positive on that. But Larry, he has the completely opposite experience. They've now put him on dependent, but I don't think that they have accepted him into the group. And Gunn asked, do you know why Elvis liked guns so much? So there would have been a culture at the time that Elvis grew up that everybody had a gun. Everybody that Elvis knew would have had a gun. They would have had rifles, they would have had pistols, mostly rifle. They would have used them to go hunting. I don't know if Vernon had a rifle, but if he did, it would have probably been a 22. It was very common to have a 22 for small game, for pest control, for things like that. Also very common to own a shotgun. These things were not seen as odd. They were almost necessary. And if you lived out on a farm, now Elvis lived somewhat rural, but really more in the city always. Even in Tupelo, he was near Tupelo proper. He was a few miles away. But if you got further out than that, you were basically by yourself. And so your self-defense was up to you. And it was tradition just to own guns. And they were useful for the things that I mentioned. So people had them. So as Elvis began to acquire money, one of the possessions he would naturally have gravitated towards is firearms. Although he would have probably only gotten one or two for personal safety or home defense. He was really more into the motorcycles and stuff at that moment. But at some point, all these things you're buying become boring. And when he's dating June Wanaco, they go out and they buy all these BB guns. And they get a bunch of old records from somebody that's running, I think, jukeboxes. And so they got all these 45s that are used up that are no good anymore. And they put them on a broom handle. And then one guy takes them off the broom handle and he throws one at a time, each of these discs into the air. And then all the guys would fire at them with the BB guns. Kind of a child's version of skeet shooting. And Elvis loved that. And at one point, they got a bunch of BB guns and they blew up or shot up a bunch of toy ships in the swimming pool. And they did this at multiple swimming pools in multiple places. And it caused a big mess. And they also like to use flash bulbs. They would throw these, and back then you had to have a flash bulb for your camera. And it had some kind of chemical in it. And when the chemical reacted together, it came off a flash. So they would throw these flash cubes into the pool and they would float. And then they would fire at them with the BB guns. And when they hit them, they would blow up with this giant flash. And Elvis thought that was great too, but it got glass all over the bottom of the pool. And the guy who had to clean that up was usually Vernon. So Vernon didn't think it was that great. And then Elvis is doing the movies. And during one of the movies, I think Jailhouse Rock, Elvis got a hold of a prop gun. And I think he was using it in the movie for something, but he got the prop guy to let him take a prop gun. And then when he's with George Klein, somebody threatened Elvis and he flashed it at him or something. I don't remember the story exactly, but it was in 57 and he pulls this gun and it's really only a prop gun. And I think that the fact that people tell this story to show that Elvis was like wild with the guns or that he was overreactive. Well, he was actually in physical danger in this story. So he felt at that moment like he had to pull that gun in order to disarm the situation and get it to calm down where there'd be no physical violence. But I think that the fact he had to pull it at all, or that he felt a need to do so, made him start thinking much more seriously about his own personal defense. And that's when he starts hiring guys specifically as bodyguards. he's got the one. I think that's he's kind of got the one bodyguard from the colonel, but they get much more serious about it. And I think that is what causes the gun fascination to start to explode. And then he goes to the army and he gets a lot of experience with guns, very hands-on experience with a lot of different kinds of weapons. So now he's a semi-expert into the weapons. And when Elvis becomes a semi-expert at something, it means he's fascinated with it and he tends to move forward for a while. And this becomes a major hobby for him. One that I think is also linked to the karate. It's not karate, but it's also defense. And he starts to carry all these pistols. And then all these people, 63 is when JFK is shot. And then all these other people are assassinated. And then the Manson family kills people horribly. Elvis gets just terrified about these things. And I think it just keeps ramping up into the guns. That's what I think about the guns. Yeah, it's just off the top of my head rambling about it. But Colleen says that as a child, he wanted a rifle, and Gladys talked him into a guitar, and Gunn says that she remembers that too. Yes, that's absolutely one of the stories, that he wanted a gun, but they couldn't afford the gun. It was too expensive, and Gladys probably didn't want him to have a gun. And so, but sometimes the story is he wanted a bicycle, and they didn't have the money for the bicycle, and they end up compromising on the guitar. But if you want to see where he bought that guitar, you can. You could still go there and stand right in the spot where Elvis stood as they bought that guitar. And they still sell guitars in that. It's still a hardware store. And you can find a lot of videos about it on YouTube. It's at the Tupelo hardware store. And Gunn says that she learns a lot about the U.S. this way, asking you who lives there. And Pat says that she thinks that Elvis was happy with the guitar. I think he was pretty happy too. He got to spend some time with people that he loved, showing him how to play the guitar, like his pastor and like his Uncle Vester. And he started picking up knowledge from all over. And it's around that time that he starts picking up an interest in Mississippi Slim and broadcasting on the radio. There's a radio station in Tupelo, and he was friends with Mississippi Slim's brother. Mississippi Slim, he was a famous, or semi-famous, regionally famous guy that played country music live on the radio. And Elvis was on his program, I think twice. So it all starts in Tupelo. But eventually, by 1964, he's giving away watches like we see on the screen. He's thinking deep thoughts, and he's reading books like The Impersonal Life, which we're not going to get to today. And when we come back in the next episode, we are going to read chapter 3. But I did want to show you guys this Bible. I didn't think it'd take the whole time, but it was a really interesting story, right? So I think it's time well spent. It's something that a lot of Elvis fans don't know. And I got a couple more pictures to show you before we get out of here. That's Elvis wearing the pendant. The Tree of Life. This is the famous Elvis picture from the White House when he met Richard Nixon. He is shaking Richard Nixon's hand. We just can't see Tricky Dick. But you can see the pendant at Elvis's neck. When he went to see the president, he wore the Tree of Life. He took all of his friends with him, not just Jerry and not just Sonny. He took them all. And here he is again wearing the pendant, which stands out so beautifully in this picture. even though it's a terrible picture in terms of contrast, color, light, whatever you judge a picture by. But you can see his good friend next to him, J.D. Sumner, the great gospel singer. I don't know the two gentlemen standing next to him. I'm going to guess they're part of J.D.'s quartet, and I probably know their names, but I just don't recognize them in this picture. But Elvis has an amazing suit jacket on with this giant collar, big Napoleonic collar. And Pat says it was a pretty background in one of the photos and that she's glad she got here for this. I'm glad she did too, Pat. Make sure you watch the replay because I told a good story in this one. And Gunn says everything about Elvis is interesting, and that's why it takes time, I think. I think so too. You got to let it all unfold and really take it in. I think a lot of channels, they rush through all this stuff. They may not know what it really signifies. And Pat says, how cool is that meeting the president? Taking all your friends with you, right? And Pat says she's still learning every day. Hi, Ebru. Thank you so much for coming. Appreciate seeing you here. Pat says that she'll watch the replay. Thank you so much, Pat. I hope you enjoy it. And this is the last picture. I do not know who this beautiful lady is that Elvis is with. I probably should know. If you know, let me know. But you can see that Elvis is once again wearing the Tree of Life. So he did wear this pendant. It meant something special to him. And Colleen says that his life is a puzzle and every piece means something. I think so too, Colleen. But now I've got to let you all go. And I'm going to let you go with this song called Sealed in Gold, because we've been talking about gold jewelry. Until I see you all again, hopefully at 3 p.m. Eastern Standard Time today. You all keep on taking care of business.
In the hush of a Vegas night, he called a close, no stage, no line. Slipped a ring on both her hands, no crowd to cheer, no wedding band, just love, just breath, just time grown old, a vow unspoken, sealed in gold. Two hearts caught in 24K, in peace, in quiet display. No diamonds loud, no eagles cry, just tenderness that doesn't lie. Worn near her skin, where stories hold a whisper of him, sealed in gold. My love, just a gift, but something whole, the myth, the memory, sealed in gold. No velvet throne, no final show, just gravel roads where true love goes. He gave her life, he gave her soul, and left behind a heart to hold. He loved my life. He wrote it in chain, a promise for through joy and pain, not just to give something for the myth in me. Sealed in gold, sealed in gold, sealed in gold.